Hey guys, welcome back to the Curly Reader. My name's Amanda, and today I want to share with you all of the books that I was able to read during the month of May. So during the month of May, I read 12 books, which is a lot less than a couple of the previous months, and I am happy with that. Of those 12 books, let's look at some stats. So you guys all know what my reading trends tend to be. I tend to read a lot of middle grade and a lot of audiobooks. This month, I read 6 audiobooks and 6 physical books. Can we just recognize that would be my 2-year-old son screaming. Their kids are playing, they're fine, they're just loud. But anyway, can we get some recognition for the fact that I read as many physical books as I did audiobooks this month? Also, I read 7 middle grade, 1 young adult, and 4 adult books. One of those middle grades, though, sorry, I keep messing with my hair. My hair will not stay out of my face. One of those middle grades was Anne's House of Dreams, which technically is shelved as middle grade. Like in the library, it's considered middle grade, but really it's not what we would consider middle grade now. So I don't really know how else to classify the Anne of Green Gables as we're getting towards the end of the series. I'm going to continue classifying them as middle grade, even though I really don't think they're middle grade. So, and then the young adult was a Harry Potter book. So anyway, but not bad numbers as far as middle grade. Library versus owned. I read 6 books that I own and 6 books from the library. So our libraries are still doing curbside pickup. I'm able to get books from my library. Audiobooks often are from the library. Always are from the library. So anyway, as far as ratings go, I had 3 5-star books, 5 4-star books, and 4 3-star books. So that's not bad. That's not bad ratings either. So those were my stats. Let's get into some books. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Sorry. Oh my goodness, my hair is driving me crazy today. I don't really know how I'm going to go about doing which books I read this month. So why don't we just go in, I don't know, we're just going to go in random order because that's what I want to do. First, we'll talk about my read-alongs that I've been doing. So first we have Anne's House of Dreams. This was much better than Anne of Windy Poplars. After reading Anne of Windy Poplars, I was very concerned that I was going to be falling off the wagon. And I'm one of the hosts of this read along, so it's not like I can just give up. I mean, I could if I really wanted to, but I didn't want to, but I was not enjoying the books. And this one just really brought it all back home to me. It was perfect. This is about Anne right after she gets married. It starts with her wedding, and then kind of the first couple of years of marriage, she's starting to have kids. This book was very sad in parts, but to me this book really brought Anne to life as far as being a real person. It really showed some of the negative things that come with life, and up to this point Anne had just been so perfect and her life had been so easy almost. I mean, she was an orphan, her life is not easy, but things just kind of all worked out for the better all the time for her, and this really showed some of the real aspects of life. So I really like this one. I gave it 4 stars. The other read along that I have been doing with a Facebook book club is to reread through the Harry Potter series, and I read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire this month. I listened to the majority of this on audiobook, and then the last week of the month my audiobook expired and I had 8 chapters left of it, so I ended up having to finish it off physically, which wasn't a big deal. It's Harry Potter, it reads fast, but it was just kind of a bummer because I've been really enjoying the audiobooks and there was no way I was going to be able to get it from the library on audio that quickly because they're often on hold for a couple of weeks. You have to put them on hold. And anyway, so this one, I did give 5 stars. However, I will say, so this is my first reread of Harry Potter pretty much since they originally came out. I think I started reading Harry Potter right after this one was released. I started reading the first one. And so rereading them now, I'm much more critical of the way that I read them, and there were definitely flaws in this book. Some massive flaws, but that all being said, oh, excuse me, that all being said, I really, really enjoyed it, and it's just such a fun book. So, and this is the book that just like really kind of starts the, it's the catalyst for the rest of the series. So, really like that one. That was one of my 5-star reads. All right, how about a couple of buddy reads? So the buddy reads that I did this month, the first of which was As Bright as Heaven by Susan Meisner. I read this with Krista from Books and Jams and Katie at Life Between Words. I did a book review of this. It is up on my channel, so I will just say that I loved this book. It is about this the Spanish flu in 1918 in Philadelphia, and it follows a family who are undertakers in Philadelphia during the pandemic that was there. I loved this book. Once again, it had its flaws, but I really, really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this one 5 stars, and the link to my review of this will be in the description box down below if you would like to know more of my in-depth thoughts on that. Another buddy read that I did this month was Chains by Lori Halse Anderson. Still has like random bookmark in it, even though I'm finished with it, and some notes and stuff. But I read this with Vanessa at Split Reads, and this is a middle grade, definitely high-end middle grade book that follows a slave girl during the Revolutionary War. She is brought into New York City and is kind of trying to be persuaded to become a spy. Her owners or her masters are, what do they call them? Tories. So they are loyal to the crown, and a couple of the other slaves in town are trying to get her to become a spy for the Patriots, and she just wants free. And so she is just kind of trying to go to whichever side she thinks is going to help. And there was a lot in this book. A lot of true historical things that were included in this book that I really appreciated. I really liked this. This was gory. Like, this was very, very intense for a middle grade book. They talked about like hanging people up by their ankles and slitting their throats, for example. There is one scene in this book, and I don't think this would technically be considered spoilers, but there is a scene that talks about branding of slaves, and it is very intense. Like, I had to sit the book down and kind of walk away from it for a little bit because it was very intense. And if I'm having to do that, I can only imagine like middle graders trying to read this. So I would definitely caution you with this book. This is the first book in a series. I'm definitely going to continue with the series because I really, really loved how in depth Lori Halse Anderson went with this, and I want to know how it ends. However, I would caution you with age range on this because it's pretty intense. So anywho, love this one. Gave that one 4 stars. Another buddy read I did this month is Paper Wishes by Lois Sapaban. I just hauled this from Book Outlet, and I bought this because Mary from Happily Ever Esh hauled it from Book Outlet, and I was like, that looks pretty. It sounds interesting. It was only a couple of bucks. I think it was like $4. So I went ahead and got it. And so we decided we would buddy read it together. It's super, super short, really quick to get through, and it was good. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. This follows a girl who is put in a Japanese internment camp during World War II. She lives on an island off of the Washington coast and is taken to a Japanese internment camp probably in California or Arizona. I honestly don't remember where. But when she leaves for the internment camp, she is not allowed to take her pet dog with her. And so the majority of the book is about her grieving the loss of her dog and missing him and all of that. There is a lot of commentary also about the internment camp. I felt like the commentary about the internment camp was very light. I felt like it did not show much negative about the internment camp. It just kind of made it all to be too good. There weren't any like soldiers that were being mean to anybody, and that's not true. And I know that's not true. There wasn't really any complaint about the housing other than it was small and they were in close quarters. But other than that, there were really no negative sides shown, and I didn't really like that part of it. But it was an easy kind of, good read. This was definitely a low 3-star read for me, but enjoyed that. All right, so then after that, I read a couple of books that I still have left, middle grade books that I had gotten from the library for middle grade March that I still haven't taken back to the library because we don't have to. So I've just kind of been holding on to the things that I haven't had a chance to read yet. Ugh, my hair. That I haven't had a chance to read yet, and reading them as I can. Some of them are shorter, but one of the ones that I did finally pick up is The Bridge Home by Padma Venkatraman. This was just okay for me. There were some things that I really didn't like in this book, but then there were parts of it that I really did like. This is a book about these Indian siblings in India, this sister and her younger sister, who flee their home because their father is abusive, and they run away to the city and they live on the streets. And it is told in second person point of view. One of the sisters is writing the other sister a letter, and so you're kind of reading it in that perspective. It's not necessarily epistolary, it's just written in second person point of view. When they get to the city, they come in contact with these 2 other little boys, and they kind of become a found family of sorts, and it's just kind of about their experience. There were definitely things in this that I did not like, but overall it was a 3-star read for me. I'd be interested to hear, if you've read that, what your perspective is on it, because yeah. Another one that I had picked up that was part of my try a chapter tag that I did for middle grade is Walking with Miss Millie by Tamra Bundy. This is set in 1968 in Georgia, and it follows this little girl, Alice, who is moving from Columbus, Ohio, down to Georgia to live with her grandmother, who is suffering, I'm assuming, Alzheimer's. She's becoming forgetful, forgetting who she is, that sort of thing. And so she moves down there. Her mom and her deaf brother, their father has kind of left and abandoned them. And so she is processing that. She's processing the whole, she doesn't want to be there aspect of it. And in all of that, she kind of comes to know that her grandma's next door neighbor, Miss Millie, who is a black woman, elderly woman who lives next door, and she starts going on walks with her, and they become friends. And so it's just kind of about their friendship and her experience throughout the summer. This was good. I was really hoping it would be better than it was. After I did pick this up, this was a cover pickup for me at the library, and then after I picked it up, I saw a couple other people talking about it, and I was really hoping it was going to kind of go there more than it actually did. It talks about race relations. Miss Millie talks about, segregation and how they had just kind of gotten past that a little bit, but how tensions were still high in the South. And it was very briefly discussed, but I kind of wish it would have went there a little bit more. It was a high 3-star read for me. All right. I also, this month, watched a video from Anna James. She is the author of Tilly and the Book Wanderers. Her YouTube channel, A Case for Books, she did an interview with Catherine Rundell, who is a middle grade author, and in that video found out that Catherine Rundell had written an essay that is titled, I have to read it because it's long, Why You Should Read Children's Books Even Though You Are So Old and Wise. And then I went looking for it and found that it came in a little bound copy, and so I bought it on Amazon. It's just this tiny itty bitty little book. Oh my goodness. But within this itty bitty little book, I have, you can kind of see here, I have these book darts. Let's see if I can actually flip these pages. All these book darts in this teeny tiny little book that I just loved all these quotes. I love this. There were so many good points made in this book, and as an adult who loves middle grade, I just knew that I had to read this. I did only give this 4 stars because I felt like she expounded on some things that really weren't relevant to, I didn't feel were relevant to the point she was trying to make. I kind of wish she would have expounded more on other things that she glossed over instead. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed this, and I thought it was great, and everybody should get a chance to read this. All right, so after that, I have a few audiobooks that I listened to from the library, and the first of which is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This is one that my mom recommended that I read, and so I read it because I had heard a ton about it. It was very, very popular last year, and it just never really appealed to me that much. And I think it's because nobody could really explain what it was about. And then as I'm reading it, I'm like, I have no idea what the point of this is. And then you get to the end and you're like, oh, okay, I get the point of it, but you can't really say what the point of it is. I don't know. It's just like a weird book. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, but it was like a really low 4-star for me. But this is about Eleanor Oliphant, who works this office job and just doesn't really have very many friends. And it's just a little off, and you just kind of get things from her perspective, and she is trying to fit in more and things, but you just get to know more about her and her traumatic life. She has had a very, very traumatic life, and this book kind of explores that and tells it from the point of view of how it has affected her as an adult. The residual trauma effects of that as an adult, even though she went through this as a child. And so, and as you get to know her more, you get to know more and more about what those effects were. And so I think that's the best way to explain that. But yeah, it was good, but it was not as good as I was hoping it would be. I don't know. I tend to have really high hopes for books, and when they're not as good as I hope they're gonna be, it makes me sad. All right, another audiobook I listened to is The One and Only Bob by Katherine Applegate. This is a sequel to The One and Only Ivan, which is very well known and well loved. It's a middle grade book, and The One and Only Bob follows Bob, who we meet in The One and Only Ivan. He is a stray dog, and so at the end of The One and Only Ivan, Bob goes to live with another family, and here we're just getting kind of after The One and Only Ivan, what happened to Bob. And this one was a disappointment for me. I didn't really like it that much. I will say it was narrated by Danny DeVito, who I guess voices Bob in the movie adaptation of The One and Only Ivan, which is coming out later this year. And the narration was amazing. I cannot wait to see The One and Only Ivan because I think Danny DeVito is the perfect voice for Bob. And I love the way that he narrated this book, but the actual story was a little too out there for me. That's just my opinion. I only gave it 3 stars. All right, another audiobook I listened to that I very, very much enjoyed was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is one that has been all the buzz within the book community, and I loved it. So I do not read a lot of romance. I don't read a lot of women's fiction, and this is a romance, but it is this story about Augustus and January are the 2 characters' names. And it's told from the point of view of January. She is going to this lake house for the summer, and when she gets there, she realizes that the boy next door that is in the beach house next door to hers is none other than her college rival. They both went to school for writing or English or something along those lines, and they were rivals. And so they kind of start going at each other again, and in the middle of an argument decide that she writes women's fiction, he writes literary fiction, and they both are kind of have hit writer's block, and they decide that, okay, well then you try to write women's fiction and you try to write literary fiction, and whoever can sell their book first wins this bet. And that's kind of where things go. And as part of that, they spend time together to kind of show each other what the writing process is like, and it's all about writer's block and the writing process for each of these different genres. And within that, you get to know each of the characters and what's going on in their lives and why they write the way they do, which I really loved that aspect of it. Why January chooses to write women's fiction, and why Augustus chooses to write literary fiction and write the types of books that they do. I really, really loved that. I loved these characters so, so much. I loved the conversations that they had. I love this book. I actually, when I got done with it, I Voxered Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand, because I knew that she had just finished reading the book, and I messaged her and I'm like, this was so good. And I think one of the reasons I loved it so much was because some of the conversations that they have, like, I've had those conversations with my husband. Actually, when we were dating, we had these conversations, and it was such a realistic, to me, approach to a relationship, and I really appreciated that. And yeah, loved it. Don't need to hype it up anymore because I think it has a ton of hype already, but from someone who does not really read romance, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Gave it 5 stars. All right. The next audiobook, this is my last book. So the last book that I listened to was The Only Black Girls in Town by Brandy Colbert. So once everything started kind of hitting the fan here in Minneapolis, I have been very much trying to consume a lot of the social media. Let's say this. A lot of the social media that I have been consuming have been from Black readers who are trying to express good resources for us to read during this time. And one of those people, I think it's TheMelanatedReader, I think is her username on Instagram, but she put together this list of books that would be good books to read, and this was one of the books on her list. It is a YA book. It may be considered middle grade. It's like the girls they're going into 7th grade in this book, and it is about the main character, Alberta, I think is her name, and she's the only Black girl in her grade. She lives in California. She loves surfing. She loves being a California girl, and right before school starts, somebody moves in across the street, and it's another Black girl, and the Black girl has moved from Brooklyn and wears all black and is very she misses Brooklyn, she misses being in New York, and so it's just kind of the looking into the fact that you can be similar but different, and how your similarities can bring you together and your differences can bring you together too. And I did enjoy this book. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I think I rounded it up to 4 stars on Goodreads. It was a high 3-star read for me. I really appreciated the perspective of this book. However, I think that the author was trying to tackle one too many things and really drive home one too many topics. There was a lot in this book in my perspective. But I really, really did appreciate the voice of how you feel when you are the only person that looks like you in town or at your school, and how when somebody else that moves into town that looks like you, how that brings hope and you identify with that person immediately even though you are so different. I really did appreciate that part of it. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. So those are the 12 books that I read during the month of May. If you have read any of these books, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. And yeah, what was your favorite book that you read during May as well? I'd love to know that. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you stick around and subscribe. And until next time, see ya!